The Blacksmith and his Son. Once upon a time, in an old village, there lived a blacksmith and his young son. One day, the boy said to his father, "Father, please make me a knife, one with a very sharp edge." The father smiled and replied, "Son, a knife may be useful, but tell me, what do you need it for?" The boy answered vaguely, "Just make it, father. I'll tell you later what I need it for." The father didn't ask further questions. He heated the iron, hammered it, and shaped it into a shining knife, its edge so sharp it could cut through a leaf without sound. The son took the knife, polished it, and hid it inside his clothes. Days passed. One evening, when the blacksmith was busy at his workshop, the boy quietly left the house, taking the knife with him. He wandered from village to village until he reached the royal city. There, he saw the king's grand palace surrounded by guards and shining lamps. The boy stood at the gate and asked, "Can I meet the king?" The guard laughed, "Do you think anyone can just walk in to see the king?" "Who are you, boy?" The boy confidently said, "Tell the king that a man has come who can make something no one else can." The guards were amused but curious. They went inside and told the minister. The minister found it interesting and informed the king. The king, who loved strange inventions and skilled men, said, "Bring the boy in." The blacksmith's son bowed before the king. The king asked, "What can you make that no one else can?" The boy smiled and said, "My lord, I can make a knife so sharp that it can cut through stone like butter." The entire court burst into laughter. The king, however, was intrigued. He said, "If what you claim is true, then prove it. Make such a knife for me. If you succeed, you'll be richly rewarded, but if you fail, your life will be the price." The boy accepted without fear and said, "Give me a place in your forge, and I will make it within 3 days." The king agreed, and the royal blacksmiths gave the boy a corner in their workshop. The boy began his work with deep focus and mysterious silence, the magical knife. For 3 days, the blacksmith's son worked in silence. He barely ate or slept. The other workers mocked him, saying, "Look at this village boy. He thinks he can do something even we can't." But the boy didn't answer. He kept hammering, heating, and polishing the metal with a strange rhythm. On the 3rd night, when everyone had left, he secretly took out a small pouch from his pocket. Inside was a powder his father had once made. The boy whispered, "This is my father's secret." His hands were blessed with the power of creation. He sprinkled the powder on the knife's edge and placed it in the furnace one last time. The flames turned blue for a moment, and the metal began to glow like a living thing. The boy smiled. He knew his work was done. The next morning, he presented the knife before the king. The blade shone like silver fire. The king looked at it curiously and said, "So, you claim this knife can cut through stone?" "Yes, my lord," the boy replied confidently. The king ordered a large stone block to be brought before the court. The boy stepped forward, raised the knife, and struck once, shk. The stone split into 2 perfect halves, as if it were a loaf of bread. The court gasped. The ministers were speechless. The king stood up in amazement. "By the heavens," he exclaimed, "no one in my kingdom has ever made such a thing." He rewarded the boy with gold coins, fine clothes, and a place among the royal craftsmen. But soon, jealousy began to grow among the other blacksmiths. They whispered, "This boy is not normal. No one can make such a knife unless there is magic involved." Rumors reached the king's ears. The ministers said, "Your Majesty, this boy may be dangerous. Such power should not be in the hands of a stranger." The king grew suspicious and called the boy again. "Tell me the truth," he said sternly. "How did you make this knife? Was it magic?" The boy lowered his eyes and replied, "My lord, I only used what my father taught me, nothing more." But the king did not believe him. He ordered his guards, "Lock this boy in the dungeon until he speaks the truth." The boy was taken away in chains. Inside the dark prison, he whispered to himself, "Father, your blessing is being tested, but I will prove your name once again. Days passed. The blacksmith's son remained locked inside the dark, cold cell. The guards mocked him. "So, where is your magic now, boy?" But the boy didn't respond. He sat quietly, staring at the moonlight that entered through the small iron window. One night, as he sat in silence, he heard a whisper. It was his father's voice echoing in his mind. "Son, truth shines brighter than any blade. When the world doubts you, let your work speak for you." The boy closed his eyes and smiled. He took a small piece of metal lying on the prison floor, rubbed it with dust, and began shaping it using only a stone. The guards laughed. "Are you mad? You think you can forge iron without fire?" But by morning, something unbelievable had happened. The dull piece of metal now glimmered faintly in the sunlight. The boy said softly, "My father's blessing is the real fire." Meanwhile, news spread through the palace. The king's favorite sword had broken during training. None of the royal blacksmiths could repair it. The ministers hesitated, then said, "Your Majesty, maybe the boy in prison could try." The king, curious and desperate, ordered, "Bring him here." The boy was brought before the king, weak, dirty, but calm. The king handed him the broken sword and said, "If you can fix this, I'll believe you." The boy held the sword gently and whispered, "This steel remembers its maker." He joined the broken pieces, pressed them together, and as he ran his hand along the blade, a spark of light flashed. When he lifted the sword again, it was whole, stronger and brighter than before. The court gasped in awe. The king was speechless. He fell silent for a long moment, then slowly stood and said, "You are not a magician. You are a master beyond all others." He freed the boy immediately, rewarded him with land, gold, and honor, and sent for his father, the old blacksmith, to come to the palace. When the father arrived, the king bowed slightly and said, "You are the true craftsman. Your teachings created a miracle." The father smiled humbly and said, "My lord, there is no magic in iron, only honesty, hard work, and blessings from the Almighty." The king nodded and declared, "From today, no craftsman in my kingdom will ever be looked down upon, for in the hands of a true worker lies the power of creation itself." And from that day on, the blacksmith and his son lived with respect and peace. Their name became a legend. The makers, whose hands